My name is Sarah, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. I guess I should start at the beginning, though. That's how these things usually go, right? I grew up in a small town just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. My parents, Tom and Linda, were good people, hardworking, honest, and kind. Dad worked at the local factory, and Mom was a cashier at the grocery store. They always told me that education was important, but when it came time for college, well, let's just say our bank account didn't agree. So, after high school, I did what a lot of people in our town did. I got a job. First at the diner down the street, then at a department store. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Still, I knew I wanted more. "Sarah," my mom said to me one day as I was complaining about my job, "you've always been good with hair. Remember how you used to braid Jenny's hair for the school dances? Why don't you look into becoming a hairstylist? There's that beauty school in the city." That conversation changed everything. I enrolled in the beauty school, commuting an hour each way, 5 days a week. It wasn't easy, but I loved every minute of it. I graduated top of my class and got my license. I was on cloud 9, ready to take on the world. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just as I was starting my career at a local salon, the pandemic hit. It felt like the whole world ground to a halt. The salon closed, and suddenly, I was back home with my parents, unemployed and scared. Then came the nightmare I never saw coming. Mom got sick first. We thought it was just a bad flu, but when Dad started showing symptoms too, we knew it was serious. I called an ambulance, but it was too late. They both died within a week of each other. I was devastated. Angry at the world. For months, I could barely get out of bed. The apartment they left me felt too big, too empty. The savings they'd worked so hard for sat untouched in the bank. But one day, as I was going through their things, I found an old photo album. There was a picture of me at my beauty school graduation. Mom and Dad were standing on either side of me, beaming with pride. That's when it hit me. I couldn't let their sacrifice go to waste. I made a decision right then and there. I was going to open my own salon. Not just any salon, but the best damn salon in town. It wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. But slowly, surely, things started to come together. I hired my first employee, then my second. Word started to spread about the new salon in town where you always left feeling like $1,000,000. Before I knew it, we were booked solid weeks in advance. I was so focused on making the business a success that I hardly noticed the years slipping by. It wasn't until my 28th birthday that I looked up and realized something was missing. That's when I decided to dip my toe into the world of online dating. I've never met guys on the internet before. But I figured, how hard could it be? You put up a few pictures, write something witty about yourself, and wait for Prince Charming to come knocking, right? Wrong. The first few weeks were a disaster. I got messages from guys young enough to be my son, if I'd had one at 10, that is, men old enough to be my father, and everything in between. I was about ready to give up when I got a message from a guy named Mark. He was 35, worked as a shift supervisor at a factory, and actually seemed normal. We started chatting, and before I knew it, we were messaging every day. Mark was different from the other guys I'd talked to. He told me about growing up in a small town not unlike mine, about losing his parents, though he didn't go into details, about his dreams of owning his own business someday. 3 months flew by like that. We messaged every day, sometimes for hours. I found myself looking forward to his texts, smiling at my phone like a teenager with a crush. But we still hadn't met in person. "Don't you think it's time you two actually met?" Jen, my assistant, asked one day as we were closing up the salon. I hesitated. "I don't know. What if he's not what I'm expecting?" Jen rolled her eyes. "And what if he is? Come on, Sarah. You've been talking to this guy for 1/4 of a year. Either meet him or move on." She was right, of course. That night, I took a deep breath and sent Mark a message. So, I was thinking, maybe it's time we met in person? His response came almost instantly, I thought you'd never ask. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown the following Saturday. I spent the whole week alternating between excitement and panic. What if he didn't like me in person? What if I didn't like him? What if he was actually a serial killer? Okay, maybe I'd been watching too many true crime documentaries. Saturday arrived, and I must have changed my outfit 10 times before leaving the house. As I walked into the coffee shop, my heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. And then I saw him. Mark was sitting at a table by the window, looking just like his profile picture. When he saw me, he stood up, a big smile on his face. Sarah, he said, extending his hand. It's so great to finally meet you in person. I shook his hand, noting how firm his grip was. It's great to meet you too, Mark. We sat down, ordered our coffees, and started talking. And you know what? It wasn't awkward at all. It felt like we'd known each other for years. We laughed about our online dating horror stories, talked about our jobs, our hobbies, our dreams for the future. After that first coffee date, things with Mark moved pretty quickly. We started meeting once a week, usually on Saturdays when we both had some free time. Sometimes we'd go for walks in the park, other times we'd try out new restaurants in town. It was nice, having someone to share those moments with. The weeks flew by, and before I knew it, we'd been dating for 4 months. Mark had become a regular fixture in my life. He'd stop by the salon sometimes, bringing me coffee or just to say hi. My employees loved him, always teasing me about when we were going to make it official. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was just closing up the salon when Mark called. Hey, I said, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder as I locked the door. What's up? Can you meet me at the park? He sounded nervous. There's something I want to talk to you about. My heart skipped a beat. Sure, I'll be there in 10 minutes. The park was quiet when I arrived, just a few joggers and dog walkers enjoying the early evening air. I spotted Mark sitting on a bench near the fountain, fidgeting with something in his hands. Mark, I called out as I approached. Is everything okay? He stood up, and I could see now that what he was holding was a small box. My breath caught in my throat. Sarah, he said, his voice shaking slightly. These past 4 months have been the happiest of my life. You're kind, you're beautiful, you're hardworking, you're everything I've ever wanted in a partner. Sarah, will you marry me? For a moment, I couldn't speak. This was really happening. Part of me wanted to say we should wait, that we barely knew each other. But a larger part, the part that had been lonely for so long, that had been yearning for companionship, for a family, that part was screaming yes. Yes, I whispered, then louder. Yes, Mark. I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on my finger, a simple solitaire diamond, nothing flashy, but beautiful all the same. Then he stood up and kissed me, right there in the park. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. We decided we didn't want a big wedding, neither of us had much family to invite anyway. We agreed to just have a simple ceremony at the courthouse. The day of the wedding arrived before I knew it. I wore a simple white dress I'd bought off the rack, and Mark wore a new suit, the one I'd helped him pick out for his promotion. We said our vows in front of a judge, with only Jen from the salon there as a witness. As we signed the marriage certificate, I felt a mix of emotions, joy, excitement, but also a twinge of nervousness. We hadn't been intimate yet. Mark had always been very respectful, never pushing for more than I was comfortable with. But that was okay, I told myself. We had all the time in the world to figure things out. We were married now. We were starting our life together. After the wedding, Mark moved into my apartment. On our first night as a married couple, Mark surprised me with an unexpected request. Sarah, he said, as we stood awkwardly in the living room. I was thinking, maybe we could sleep in separate bedrooms for a while? I felt like I'd been slapped. Separate bedrooms? But, we're married now. He must have seen the hurt on my face, because he quickly added, "It's not that I don't want to be with you. I just think we should take things slow, you know? Get to know each other better before we, you know." I didn't know how to respond. On one hand, I appreciated that he wasn't pressuring me into anything. On the other hand, wasn't this what married couples did? "If that's what you want," I said finally, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. He smiled and kissed me on the cheek. "Thanks for understanding, honey. I promise, it won't be for long." But as the days passed, I began to wonder if I'd made a huge mistake. Mark's idea of getting to know each other better seemed to involve treating me more like a maid than a wife. It started the very first morning after our wedding. I was still in bed when Mark knocked on my door. "Sarah, are you up? I have to leave for work soon and I haven't had breakfast." I glanced at the clock. It was 5:30 a.m. "Can't you grab something quick?" I called back, still half asleep. "I was hoping you could cook something," he replied. "I need a good meal before my shift." Groggily, I got up and made my way to the kitchen. As I scrambled some eggs and toasted bread, Mark sat at the table, scrolling through his phone. "This is nice," he said as I set the plate in front of him. I could get used to this. And get used to it he did. Every morning, he expected breakfast to be ready before he left for work. Every evening, he wanted dinner on the table when he got home. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself increasingly frustrated and confused. This wasn't how I'd imagined married life would be. Mark and I barely spent any time together outside of meals. He was always either at work or shut away in his room. One night, after a particularly long day at the salon, I decided to try and spice things up a bit. I put on some makeup, did my hair, and slipped into a sexy nightgown I'd bought on a whim. I knocked on Mark's door, heart pounding. "Mark, can I come in?" "Just a minute," he called back. I heard rustling, then the sound of a drawer closing. "Okay, come in." I opened the door, trying to strike a seductive pose. "I thought maybe we could spend some time together tonight," I said, attempting to sound alluring. Mark looked at me, his expression unreadable. Then he sighed. "Sarah, I'm really tired. Can you just bring me some water and turn off the light on your way out?" I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Wordlessly, I went to the kitchen, got him a glass of water, and brought it back. "Good night, Sarah," he said, not even looking at me as he took a sip of water. 2 months into our marriage, and I felt more like a maid than a wife. Mark and I still hadn't been intimate, and the distance between us seemed to grow with each passing day. Every evening followed the same routine. I'd come home from the salon, make dinner, and then Mark would retreat to his bedroom immediately after eating, leaving me to clean up and finish the household chores. I couldn't help but notice Mark's peculiar habits. He always wore long-sleeved shirts, even on the hottest summer days. When I asked him about it once, he mumbled something about being cold-natured and changed the subject. He never changed clothes in front of me, always locking himself in the bathroom or his bedroom to do so. I was at my wit's end, feeling lonely, frustrated, and increasingly insecure. One day at the salon, during a rare lull in customers, I found myself pouring out my troubles to my employees. "I just don't understand," I said, fighting back tears. "We've been married for 3 months, and he barely touches me. He won't even change clothes in front of me." Jen patted my hand sympathetically. "Maybe he's just shy, Sarah. Some guys are like that." Lisa, one of our newer stylists, chimed in with a mischievous grin. "Or maybe he's a secret agent, and he's got a bunch of spy gadgets hidden under those long sleeves." "Ooh, or maybe," piped up Megan, our receptionist, "he's actually a robot, and he's afraid you'll see his circuits if he takes off his clothes." Soon, everyone was joining in, each theory more outlandish than the last. "He's a vampire, and he's afraid of sunlight. He's got a tattoo of his ex-girlfriend's name, and he doesn't want you to see it. He's actually 3 raccoons in a trench coat, masquerading as a human." We were all laughing by this point, the tension of the earlier conversation broken. For a moment, I felt lighter, grateful for these women who could make me smile even in the midst of my troubles. It was just another Tuesday at the salon. I was in the middle of a complicated highlight job when my phone rang. Seeing it was an unknown number, I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello, is this Sarah Collins?" a professional voice asked. "Yes, this is she," I replied, my stomach tightening with sudden anxiety. "Mrs. Collins, this is Mercy General Hospital. Your husband, Mark, has been admitted. He's stable, but he needs surgery. It would be best if you could come as soon as possible." I barely remember handing off my client to Jen or the drive to the hospital. My mind was racing. What could have happened? Why did he need surgery? At the hospital, a nurse directed me to the surgical ward. As I approached the desk, a doctor in scrubs came out to meet me. "Mrs. Collins?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. Thompson. I'm handling your husband's case." "What's wrong with Mark?" I blurted out, shaking his hand absently. Dr. Thompson's expression softened. "It's appendicitis. We need to operate soon, but don't worry. It's a routine procedure, and your insurance covers everything." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Can I see him?" "He's being prepped for surgery now, but..." Dr. Thompson paused, an odd expression crossing his face. "Mrs. Collins, there's something I need to discuss with you." He led me to a small consultation room and closed the door. "When we were examining your husband, we noticed something unusual." My heart started racing again. "What do you mean, unusual?" Dr. Thompson looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Collins, how long have you been married?" 3 months, I replied, confusion adding to my worry. "Why?" He frowned. "And in that time, have you seen your husband without his shirt on?" I felt my face flush with embarrassment. "No, actually. We haven't had sex yet." Dr. Thompson's frown deepened. "Mrs. Collins, are you a U.S. citizen? Is this a marriage of convenience for immigration purposes?" "What? No," I exclaimed, reaching for my purse. "I was born here. I can show you my ID if you need." He held up a hand, stopping me. "That won't be necessary." I apologize for asking, but I had to be sure. He took a deep breath. "Mrs. Collins, your husband has a large tattoo on his back. It's not something one sees every day." I stared at him, bewildered. "A tattoo? But Mark hates needles. He won't even get flu shots." Dr. Thompson's expression turned grave. "This isn't just any tattoo. It's a symbol associated with a known destructive cult." My mind reeled. A cult? Mark? It didn't make any sense. The doctor pulled out a notepad and quickly sketched something. "This is what the tattoo looks like. I strongly advise you to research this symbol when you get home. Mrs. Collins. Sarah. I think you might be in danger." In a daze, I thanked the doctor and made my way back to my car. As soon as I got in, I pulled out my phone and searched for the symbol Dr. Thompson had drawn. The results made my blood run cold. The symbol was indeed associated with a cult, one known for manipulating people into joining, then systematically stripping them of their assets. The large back tattoo was a mark of the inner circle, the most devoted and ruthless members. Suddenly, everything started to make horrible sense. The separate bedrooms, the long-sleeved shirts, the aversion to physical contact. It wasn't about shyness or germophobia. Mark had been hiding this from me all along. As I drove home, my mind was in chaos. Was our entire relationship a lie? Was I just a target, a means to an end, for Mark and his cult? What would happen when he got out of the hospital? At home, I sat down at my computer and started digging into Mark's past. It didn't take long to find his old social media accounts. They were mostly inactive, but they gave me a glimpse into his life before me. In one old photo, I spotted a familiar face, a guy named Tom who appeared in several pictures with Mark. On a hunch, I sent Tom a message, explaining that I was Mark's wife and asking if we could meet. To my surprise, Tom responded almost immediately, agreeing to meet me at a local coffee shop. When I arrived, Tom was already there, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked nervous. "Sarah?" he asked as I approached. I nodded, and he gestured for me to sit. "I have to admit, I was shocked to get your message. I haven't spoken to Mark in years." I took a deep breath. "Tom, I need to know about Mark's past." "About the cult." Over the next hour, Tom told me a story that made my blood run cold. Mark had indeed been involved with the cult in his youth. He'd fallen in deep, causing immense pain to his family. The worst part? He'd convinced his parents to sell their house, promising to triple their money through the cult's investment scheme. Instead, he'd given all the money to the cult. His parents were devastated, Tom said, his voice heavy with old pain. They couldn't cope with the loss, the betrayal. They both passed away within a year. According to Tom, after his parents' death, Mark had seemingly come to his senses. He'd left the cult, but by then, all his old friends and family had cut ties with him. I left the coffee shop in a daze, my mind reeling from everything I'd learned. At the hospital, I steeled myself before entering Mark's room. He was awake, propped up on pillows, looking pale but alert. As soon as he saw me, he barked, "Finally! Where have you been? I'm starving. Go get me some real food, not this hospital crap." Something in me snapped. "I know about the tattoo, Mark. I know about the cult." His face went through a range of emotions: surprise, confusion, anger. Finally, he settled on indignation. "You've been snooping into my past? That's none of your business." None of my business? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm your wife." "Yeah, about that," he sneered. "You want to know why I married you? I needed a maid, someone to cook and clean for me. As a woman, you never interested me." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Well, it's over now. I want a divorce." Mark's eyes narrowed. "A divorce? Fine. But you'll have to pay me compensation." "Compensation?" I sputtered. "For what?" His lips curled into a cruel smile. "For your cruel treatment, of course. Refusing to sleep with me, not taking care of me properly, abandoning me in the hospital when I needed you most." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "I'll sue you for everything you've got. The apartment, the salon, by the time I'm done, you'll have nothing left." I stumbled out of Mark's hospital room, my vision blurred by tears of shock and anger. As I leaned against the wall in the corridor, trying to catch my breath between sobs, I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Mrs. Collins? Are you all right?" I looked up to see Dr. Thompson, concern etched on his face. I poured out everything that had just transpired in Mark's room. Dr. Thompson listened patiently, his frown deepening as I recounted Mark's threats and cruel words. When I finished, he squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Mrs. Collins. Sarah. I know this seems overwhelming right now, but I want you to know that you're not as powerless as your husband wants you to believe." I looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "Think about it," he said. "You told me earlier that you and your husband have never been intimate. You sleep in separate rooms. There's no real marital relationship to speak of. In the eyes of the law, this could easily be seen as a fraudulent marriage." A glimmer of hope sparked within me. "Really?" Dr. Thompson nodded. "I have a friend who's an excellent lawyer. She specializes in family law and has dealt with cases like this before. Here's her card," he said, pulling out a business card and handing it to me. "I'm sure she can help you navigate this situation." I took the card, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I don't know how to repay you for your kindness." He smiled. "No need for thanks. I'm just doing what's right." And there's something else you should know, he added, his expression turning serious. I've already reported the cult tattoo to the police and your husband's workplace. They take these things very seriously. I have a feeling your husband is going to be too busy dealing with his own problems to follow through on his threats against you. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I contacted the lawyer Dr. Thompson recommended, and she was every bit as competent as he'd said. We filed for divorce immediately, citing fraud and misrepresentation on Mark's part. True to Dr. Thompson's prediction, Mark found himself in hot water at work. His employers, upon learning about his cult affiliations, terminated his employment. The police also opened an investigation into his past activities. When our case finally went to court, my lawyer presented a rock-solid argument. She demonstrated the lack of a genuine marital relationship, brought in Dr. Thompson as a witness, and even had Tom testify about Mark's past. The judge ruled in my favor, granting the divorce and dismissing all of Mark's claims against me. With the divorce finalized, I was able to evict Mark from my apartment. The last time I saw him was when he came to collect his things, escorted by a police officer. As he walked away, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work. The salon flourished, and I found myself toying with the idea of opening a second location. The thought excited me in a way I hadn't felt in years.